Hello, this is going to be a fairly short video this week. I didn't really have too much planned, so I thought I was going to go back to working on my analysis of David Weiss's Flat Earth Clock app. And in particular, I wanted to focus on the Friend Finder feature. The first person to talk about the security features of the Friend Finder app, as far as I know, was Where's Wally? And then that was picked up by Mr. 42. I'll see if I can find their videos and link them below. And in their videos, the Friend Finder feature was not secured, and anybody with the appropriate URL could go and get the full list of the people who bought and installed the app. At least that was the idea behind that. By the time I got around to it, the security was already put in place. So since I don't have access to the code or to the binaries where I could inspect it to see if I could find specific URLs that are not encrypted, and also because they had switched over to use a secure HTTP, I don't have access to the URL that generates that output. So unfortunately, I'm kind of flying blind in terms of the information that's available. So as a result, I'm going to be making guesses based on the observations that I make. I've ended up gathering almost 3 months worth of statistics so far by taking various screenshots like you see here. And so these are my findings so far. As far as I can tell, there are two different numbers that may have any significance in the Friend Finder feature. The first happens to be the total number of installs. I believe this is the total number of installs worldwide. And the second set of numbers that is probably even more critical would be the total number of installs that include an individual's geolocation. And from what I've seen, particularly in Mr. 42's video, is that number, that second number, is smaller than the first. It appears from what I can tell, and I think I might have even watched a few introduction or tutorial videos that David Weiss put out in his app to tell users how to use it. It seems to be that the users that are shown in the Friend Finder only seem to be active users. So that is going to be some kind of experiment that I'm going to have to be able to run longer term to be able to prove that. And I've got a few ideas how I'm going to do that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that prior to somewhere around July 14th, when you installed it on a new device, it seems to count as another install. I captured this number just before I downloaded it and installed it on my phone. What seems to suggest that is that the first device that I installed it on was my iPad. I then used the iPad to get the total number of installs just before I installed it on my iPhone. And then I got the number again after I installed it on my iPhone. One day when I went for a walk at the Nepean Sailing Club, I used my iPad to get the number again. Then I granted the geolocation access on my iPhone to the app and I measured it again, looking at all of the various numbers. And it seemed a little bit too coincidental that the number went up by one either when I installed it or when I enabled the GPS access on my iPhone to the app. When I got the updated binary on July 14th, that then switched over to a new method of authentication, which happens to be entering in an email address. So I ended up creating a disposable email address just for this app. It seemed to me that when I went back into that Friend Finder feature and it said, oh, you need to change your profile from a username to an email address, it seemed to me that this number went up by one again each time. I can't really say if this really is the case because I don't have access to the raw data, and it may just be coincidence that somebody happened to download it and run the app on their device at the same time that I did my own thing with this app. It seems to me that one person could end up triggering multiple counts of this. And that would certainly explain why the total number is greater than the total number of installations as reported in the other section of that feed that provides the information to this app. And then you'll be able to see on the spreadsheet exactly what that number was before the app was switched over, but I think it was in the 60,000 range, and some percentage of that 60,000 were very likely inflated by the same user upgrading their own device and re-downloading the app, and that would count as another install. As of today, there are 75,000 total installations, but I think that those numbers really are artificially high. In fact, I can account for at least two of these. Slice Barcane would count for another one, and I've extracted several samples. This one was taken just a couple of days ago, and if we compare this one against July 12th, there are a few additions and there are a few that disappeared. Again, are some of these blue dots because somebody switched their location from one area to the other and it moved the blue dot from, let's say, over here to over here? Or is it because somebody installed the app, played with it for a few minutes, saw that it was complete garbage, didn't bother trying to get a refund, never used the app again over here, and then somebody else happened to do the same thing over here? That would be another explanation why the sum of the blue dots would be less than the grand total. Or could it be that somebody used it, played with it, and just let it be, and the system ended up removing their pin from the map because they were no longer active? That's going to be something that I'm going to have to investigate again in the near future, and I've got some ideas how I'm going to do that. I bought the app on July 1st. I went for a walk in a public place on the 2nd or maybe the 3rd. Let the app know where I was to enable the friend finder. Then I disabled the GPS access, and I was keeping an eye on the friend finder for maybe a week. And at that point, I decided I was going to start capturing these screenshots to see if I could find any information from these. I spent a few hours going through all of the various screen captures that I've taken to the present. So this would be the date and this would be the time. I mark the total count down in this column. I convert the date and the time into a Unix timestamp, and then I have two different columns. This column is used in this graph, and what it is, it's the Unix timestamp for that screen capture minus the timestamp of the day that I got the app. So this is going to be the total number of seconds since I bought the app. This one is going to be the difference between previous screenshot and the current screenshot to get a total number of seconds between each of the two screenshots. This is going to be a difference between the two counts. And then what I've done is I calculate the total number of new purchases per hour. The blue highlighted row is the 14th. It was somewhere around here that the app was changed. Instead of using a screen name that people could enter in, they've switched it over to use an email address. So going forward from the 15th, I would expect hopefully one new count, regardless of how many devices that user has installed the app onto. This row that I've highlighted is when I installed it on my iPhone. So up to that point, I was only using the app on my iPad, and then going forward, I had it on my iPad and on my iPhone. And then finally what I did was I plotted on the x-axis, which didn't seem to work out too well, elapsed time, and the blue line is the total number of installs, and the red line is the total number of installs per hour. So if I want to look at when the first install that was using the email address came into play, it would be somewhere around 11:47:800. Which would be right here near the very beginning. Eventually, over time, anybody who might have had the app before then and had recently updated the app should have their address switched over, And by now, the last month should be a reasonably good representation of the real statistics, hopefully, in terms of the total number of installs per hour. I've put a trend line, this red line that you see going in this direction, and it kind of goes down, and then at some point it sort of flattens out. So I would say that this area here is probably more reflective of reality, and it would look like it would be somewhere around 4 installs per hour. If the app sells for $3 US, it looks to me, if these really are new installs per hour, and assuming that each one costs $3, it would seem that David Weiss is grossing $12, $13 an hour. Multiply that by 24 hours a day. He would be making $311 a day times 365. He should be grossing $113,845 a year. I'd like to stress once again that these are just simply guesses. I do not really know. This is just based on what I'm able to observe, able to gather, and able to guess from what I have discovered. I was able to gather over 200 various screen captures. I'm going to play that as a short animation. You'll be able to see those little blue dots show up and disappear from the map. This is going to be just short of a full 3 months. That's going to be it for now. If you like the video, I would appreciate the thumbs up, the subscribe, comment below, all that other good YouTube stuff. And with that, I'm going to see you in another video soon enough. So bye for now.